3:47 in the morning. Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary. Cell Block D. Ellsworth. Bumpy Johnson wakes to silence, the kind of silence that screams. 15 shadows move through the dark. No guards, no alarms, just the scrape of feet on concrete. Bumpy's got a toothbrush in his palm, sharpened for 3 weeks against stone, the handles wrapped in torn bedsheet. 15 men, one exit, no weapons but rage. The cell door's already open. Someone paid good money for this. First man whispers, Schultz sends his regards. Bumpy doesn't blink. He's counting heartbeats, measuring distance in the dark. By the time the sun rises over San Francisco Bay, 15 men will have learned something about Harlem mathematics. Addition doesn't work when Bumpy Johnson's doing the subtracting. The question isn't whether he'll survive. The question is whether anyone else will. 4 minutes to sunrise. The concrete's about to drink deep. Rewind 6 months. Harlem, 133rd Street. The war that put Bumpy in chains. Dutch Schultz wanted Harlem's numbers racket. Every dime, every dream, every 3-digit prayer that kept families alive on $7 a week. Stephanie St. Lem, Claire ran those numbers. Bumpy was her enforcer, her bishop, her knight in blood-stained wool. When Schultz sent 12 men to take the streets, Bumpy sent 11 home in ambulances. One walked, carried a message back to the Bronx. Tell Dutch that Harlem isn't for sale. The Dutchman didn't take rejection well. Neither did his friends in federal buildings. A heroin conspiracy charge. 15 years. Most of it at Alcatraz, Island of the Damned. But here's what the prosecutors didn't understand. You can cage a man. You can't cage his reputation. Inside those walls, Bumpy spent 3 full years in solitary. Not because he was weak, because he was too dangerous. The warden called him intelligent but vicious. Translation, he reads Shakespeare at night and breaks spines by morning. Dutch Schultz knew Bumpy couldn't be killed in Harlem. Too many eyes. Too many loyalists. Too many people who die for the man who kept their grandmothers fed. But in Alcatraz, isolated, outnumbered, surrounded by men who'd slit throats for cigarettes, the Dutchman pooled money with the 5 families, offered a fortune, find 15 men willing to rush one cell. The price? Freedom, early parole. New identities outside California. 15 men said yes. 15 men had families, debts, demons. One had a daughter with tuberculosis in Oakland. Medicine costs money. Dutch Schultz had money. Bumpy Johnson had a toothbrush and 30 years of Harlem survival instinct. The universe was about to choose sides. Here's what separates legends from corpses. Bumpy knew the hit was coming, not because he was psychic, because he paid attention. In Alcatraz, information flows through invisible channels. Janitors, kitchen workers, men who empty trash and hear whispers. 2 weeks before the attack, a Puerto Rican lifer named Carlos mentioned something. The guards are taking bribes. Night shift rotations changing. Bumpy gives Carlos 3 packs of Lucky Strikes. Doesn't ask questions, just listens. A week later, the barber slips. Mentions that 15 white boys from different cell blocks are suddenly friendly, eating together, training together. Bumpy reads Machiavelli by candlelight that night. If an injury has to be done to a man, it should be so severe that his vengeance need not be feared. He sharpens his toothbrush on the cell floor. Slow, methodical, the sound like whispered prayers. See, Bumpy wasn't a brawler, he was a calculator. Violence was mathematics, angles, leverage, psychology. He'd spent his whole life outnumbered. Harlem taught him that duns don't make you dangerous. Certainty does. Every man he'd ever buried made the same mistake. They thought he was lucky. Luck is what amateurs call preparation. Bumpy Johnson prepared like a man conducting a symphony. He knew they'd come before dawn. When the human body is slowest, when reflexes betray you, he knew they'd come in numbers. Overwhelming force. 15 to 1? What they didn't know. Bumpy had already counted the exits, measured the cell dimensions, identified which bones break easiest in confined spaces. He'd been playing chess while they were playing checkers. And in Alcatraz, checkmate happens in the dark. But to understand what Bumpy was fighting for, you gotta understand Harlem. Not the Harlem of postcards. The Harlem that breathed jazz and bled hope. Small's Paradise on 135th and 7th, where waiters roller skated between tables carrying bootleg gin, where Billie Holiday's voice made grown men weep into their whiskey. The Lenox Lounge on Malcolm X Boulevard. Art Deco bar, glowing amber in the darkness. Miles Davis blowing trumpet solos that sounded like heartbreak and resurrection. These weren't just clubs, they were cathedrals. Sacred spaces where black excellence wasn't a dream, it was Friday night. And underneath it all, the numbers racket, the lifeblood, 3 digits. Pick your numbers. Bet a nickel. Win $5, enough to feed a family. Pay rent. See a doctor. The numbers were hope folded into pocket change. And Bumpy Johnson protected that hope like it was holy. He walked those streets in tailored suits, handmade shoes, Cuban cigar smoke trailing like incense. But he also walked into tenements, left cash on kitchen tables when landlords came calling, paid for funerals when children died from diseases rich folks never even heard of. Harlem didn't love Bumpy because he was violent. Harlem loved Bumpy because his violence had a purpose. When Italian mobsters tried to muscle in, Bumpy didn't negotiate. He eliminated, not for power, for preservation, for the shoeshine boys who made $1 a day, for the single mothers working 3 jobs, for the jazz musicians who couldn't play in downtown clubs because their skin was the wrong shade. Bumpy was Harlem's insurance policy. And insurance only works if people know you'll pay up. That's what those 15 men in Alcatraz didn't understand. They thought they were killing a criminal. They were trying to execute a revolution. 347 becomes 348. The first man enters Bumpy's cell. Here's where cinema happens, where reality bends into legend. Bumpy's sitting on his bunk, toothbrush hidden, breathing steady. The first attacker swings a sock filled with batteries. Bumpy moves left. The sock slams concrete. Wrist bones shatter on impact. Man number 1 is screaming. Bumpy's toothbrush finds his throat. Not deep, just enough. The man drops. 14 left. They rush together now, panicked. This wasn't the plan. The plan said he'd be sleeping. Bumpy's already moving. Back to the corner. Narrow space. They can't surround him. In tight quarters, numbers don't matter. Angles do. Only 2 men can reach him at once. Man 2 catches the toothbrush through his palm, tries to pull away. Bumpy twists. The sharpened plastic breaks off inside the wound. Man 3 goes for Bumpy's legs, gets an elbow to the temple. Skull meets concrete. He's unconscious before he understands why. 13, 12, 11. The mathematics are changing. Bumpy's breathing harder now. Blood on his knuckles. Some his, most theirs. Man 7 tries to be smart. Hangs back, waits for an opening. Bumpy catches his eyes in the dark. You got a daughter in Oakland. The man freezes. How does he know? Tuberculosis, right? Schultz promised you money. The man nods. Terrified now. Walk away. Tell the others Bumpy Johnson doesn't kill for free. The man turns, runs, doesn't look back. 12 men left. But the math's different now. Doubt is a virus. By 3:59, 8 men are unconscious. 3 are bleeding, too bad to stand. 1 is praying in Spanish. The last man standing has a shiv, real metal, stolen from the workshop. He charges. Bumpy sidesteps. Trips him with a foot. The man's momentum carries him into the bunk frame, head first. The sound is wet and final. 4 a.m. Sunrise starts painting the bay window gold. Bumpy Johnson walks to his sink, washes blood off his hands. His toothbrush, what's left of it, goes down the drain. By the time guards arrive, Bumpy's sitting on his bunk reading Plato. 15 men on the floor, some breathing, some not, all broken. The warden asks what happened. Bumpy shrugs. Somebody must have slipped. Here's the part that made Bumpy Johnson a legend. What he did next. The man with the daughter in Oakland? Bumpy made sure he survived. Made sure the guards found him first. Gave him a message to carry back. Not to Dutch Schultz. To everyone. Tell them the Godfather of Harlem doesn't die in cages. Tell them respect isn't bought, it's bled for. Tell them Bumpy Johnson's coming home. The other 14, 3 died that morning. 12 lived with scars that never healed right. Dutch Schultz got the message. Never tried again. He died a year later. Bullets from a different war. The 5 families, they learned to negotiate, not as enemies, as equals. Because that's what Bumpy proved in Cell Block D. You can imprison a man, you can outnumber him, you can pay for his death, but you can't kill an idea. And Bumpy Johnson was an idea wrapped in flesh. The idea that black men could hold power. build empires, demand respect, and a world designed to deny them everything. That toothbrush became legend. Inmates whispered about it for decades. How Bumpy Johnson fought 15 men with plastic and fury. They missed the point. It wasn't about the toothbrush. It was about the refusal to bow, to break, to accept that his life was worth less than others. In Harlem, that refusal was oxygen. People breathed it, lived it, passed it to their children. When Bumpy walked out of Alcatraz in 1963, Harlem threw him a parade, not officially, but every door opened, every head nodded, every old woman blessed him from fire escapes. He carried their dignity into that cell, brought it back bloody but unbroken. That's the code of Bumpy. Violence isn't the goal. Survival with honor is. So here's the question that keeps historians up at night. Was Bumpy Johnson a hero or a villain? He ran illegal lotteries, hurt people, built an empire on fear. But he also fed families, protected neighborhoods, stood between Harlem and annihilation. Here's a harder question. What would you do if your daughter's life was on the line? If the only medicine money came from a man offering you freedom to commit murder? The man who walked away from Bumpy's cell? He made a choice. So did the 14 who didn't. Every legend is a mirror. It shows us who we are when the world says we're nothing. Bumpy Johnson looked in that mirror every morning in Alcatraz, saw a black man from South Carolina who refused to disappear, and when 15 men tried to erase him, the mirror didn't crack. Next time, we're diving into the collision that shook America. Bumpy Johnson versus Malcolm X. Two titans, one Harlem, a friendship that changed history, because the most dangerous thing Bumpy ever did wasn't fighting 15 men. It was sitting down with a revolutionary and learning that some wars aren't won with toothbrushes. They're won with words. Hit subscribe. Drop a comment. Tell me, if you were in that cell, would you have fought or folded? Because in the end, that's all any of us can ask ourselves. When the darkness comes for you, what will you be holding? A weapon or a philosophy? Bumpy Johnson held both, and he walked out alive.